Oops. Yep. So directors, I'm just going to get us started to try and catch us up a little bit because we do have a delegation here today. So if you wouldn't mind taking your seats, that would be fantastic. So hot.
Are we ready to go, Adam? He's given it.
You're going to move the recommendation. Okay, let's open the meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is, I can't find a time anywhere. Oh, 12:46. If I can get a motion to adopt the agenda, please. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, fantastic. The motion carries. I'm just going to go over to you, CAO, because we have a delegation, I think, from the South Okanagan Conservation Fund. Apologies for being late, but I think there's a few changes to this funding policy that we can just review. And so I'll go to you, CAO.
Oh, thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, and we do have Lauren Mead here to present on the terms of reference, and I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Malden to introduce her. So first of all, this was another one of those issues that the board had requested come back to committee for discussion. And I know we've got some housekeeping changes proposed, but if there is anything else significant as far as the program goes, this would now be the time to ask questions about it. So we'll go over to Ms. Malden.
Great, thank you, Ms. Malden.
Thank you. So I think everybody has met Lauren Meads. Lauren is our new consultant or contractor who administers the South Okanagan Conservation Fund program. We're just starting to prepare for our 5th intake this year. So you might hear from Lauren a little bit lately in the next few months as we progress and put out our applications. I am going to just, in the interest of time, turn it over to Lauren. And I think the board report that's submitted there really does spell out quite, quite clearly those changes that are being proposed to the terms of reference. So
Great. Thanks,
over to Lauren.
Ms. Malden. Hi, Lauren, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, as Ms. Malden presented, so there's the board report. I probably won't go through it in interest of time, but if anybody has any questions or concerns that I can clarify, I'd be happy to.
Great, thank you. I'm going to take a look to the board to see if there's any questions. I'm just going through this because it's all highlighted in red, which I love a marked up report because that helps us get to it. So I know there's, so what was, I think Director Konoda, you wanted a covenant on land at one point, was that the request? And then I think there was some Silk Nation consultation also added into the report. Is there anything else that's missing from the new terms of reference of interest? Anybody else? No? Oh, thank you, Director Monteith.
Through the chair, is there a requirement when we partner with, say, Nature's Trust to purchase land that there's a joint logo, or what does that look like when we partner with others for purchase of land?
Great, thanks, Director Monteith. Go ahead, please, Lauren.
Yes, in the reports, we do have like a question, how is the Conservation Fund represented when you have applied and you're successful? So generally, yes, the logo is put on any signage or newsletters that go out in terms of that project.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Could I ask for a motion? Thank you, Director Bush, stepping up, and there's a seconder as well. That's excellent. Yeah. Any discussion on the motion, which is that the terms of reference for the South Okanagan Conservation Fund as amended and attached hereto be approved? No discussion. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Excellent. The motion passes. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please? Excellent. All in favor. Anyways, any opposed? Yeah, thanks. Lauren, thank you so much. I apologize for rushing through, but we look forward to you hearing about the applications when you get to come back to us.
Great, thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for coming. Over to you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Director Gettens. We start the hospital one at 1 o'clock. So finish our lunches and then we can start hospital. Or at least put the plates away. I ask you to get us ready to go here shortly.
Isn't working, I guess.
What's that?
Air conditioning isn't working.
Oh. Good to go?
It's not, I mean, feel the fan on.
Thanks, Adam. If everybody could make their way back to their seats, we will start here with the hospital district meeting, and I'll turn it over to Director Johansson. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'll call this meeting of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital District to order at 1 p.m. and look for a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Moved and second. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll deal with some minutes now. I got that the motion is that the July 20th, 23 minutes of the Okanagan-Similkameen Regional Hospital Board be adopted. Moved second. Any further discussion on those minutes? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The next item and our only item on the agenda is just the, excuse me, MOU, the draft MOU between the Regional Hospital District and Interior Health, and I've got a bit of an update that I'll give you on that. On August 10th, there was an MOU discussion between Interior Health and all of the Regional Hospital District chairs within the Interior Health Authority. It was, by all accounts, I believe it was a positive collaborative discussion about the need for an MOU. And there's definitely agreement that IH is on board, wanting an MOU as well. In addition to what's needed in the MOU, there was lots of discussion on concerns, so I'll go over those in a bit. The draft MOU attached to the agenda is not the draft MOU that will be coming to the board. It was just there to help guide the discussion, with each chair having an opportunity to talk to the concerns about how business is conducted today and what they would like to see in an MOU. It was clear each hospital district shared the same concerns as follows. So comments were around these topics: a 3 to 5 year capital plan. Everybody wanted to see that in the draft MOU. They wanted to have the ability in the MOU to open and the opportunity to widen the scope of projects if it served a particular hospital district. Enhanced project implementation and accountability process for projects greater than $1 million. This would include the project's need assessment and strategic importance. So that's really critical when you're getting down to determining whether you're going to support a project or not support a project, knowing why the project is needed, what the strategic importance is with all the other projects there. Just that kind of information is wanted. Acknowledgement that funding is provided on a voluntary basis with the right to decide on the amount of funding contribution for projects. So in the original MOU that came out from Interior Health, they were basically indicating that it was mandated as per the Hospital Act that we had to fund that. And it's clear from the Northern Health MOU that it was noted that it's voluntary. It's not prescribed that you have to fund everything that comes from Interior Health. The need to avoid or at least minimize out-of-cycle funding requests. There was discussion about the disposition of assets and the disposition of proceeds that may have been cost shared by that regional hospital district. So I'm not familiar with anything of a project similar to that, but I guess if you contributed money to do something and that asset still has value and you're not going to use it anymore, there may be some money that could come back, and some of that money should naturally flow back to the regional hospital districts. Clear meeting dates for planning and funding requests. We talked about meeting at UBCM and Silga, and the direction seems to be that we're going to reestablish those meeting dates, at least biannual, up in Kelowna, face-to-face meetings with all the hospital district chairs and vice chairs and Interior Health. And an MOU review timeline, possibly 2 years to update as needed. So after we had this discussion, and Interior Health was really good, they listened to everything we had to say. There wasn't any pushback on anything in particular. There was a little bit of over discussion on what might be possible and some of the challenges that they face when they're trying to get funding from the ministry. So the next step is for IH and the CAO group to work together on wordsmithing a final MOU document Each CAO probably has a pretty good idea what the chair or what the board is wanting in an MOU. I don't think we're breaking sort of new ground here with already one being established with Northern Health. And I think one of the things that's going to be beneficial is the Northern Health MOU is coming up for renewal. So there's going to be some lessons learned there, and there may be some tweaks that would help us when we develop our MOU with Interior Health. The timeline to have the MOU ready is for the October Regional Hospital District meeting. Everybody felt like that was a possible date. I guess it'll depend on the availability of the CAO group to work together and how difficult it is getting the pieces of the puzzle together. But there was a draft MOU, like I said, put to them with a lot of the things in there. So I think just some wordsmithing and maybe being realistic about some of the requests around some of the timelines maybe, or the project needs assessment or the value of the project. For example, I talked about greater than $1 million. Well, maybe it should be greater than $5 million. You don't get hardly anything for $1 million today. And I'll just close in saying that I'm encouraged about the progress made to date. At one time, Interior Health did not seem to be too excited about an MOU, but they have seemed to have changed their mind. So that's good. I think they're being collaborative and they're listening to the regional hospital districts. And I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, but I'm optimistic we can get this done in a timely manner. And I would just throw it out there, if anybody has any concerns that have been missed, please reach out and let me know. This is the time that we need to get everything on the table, the sooner the better, so that when Bill is having those conversations with the other CAOs and Interior Health, we're in good shape. I understand that the Central Okanagan Regional District, the CAO there, the lady comes from an Interior Health background, actually. So she has actually helped put together a much different draft than I think is even in here, which captures a lot of the things, because, you know, she's coming from that organization, so she knows what's realistic. So that's giving us a bit of an edge up as well. So I'll leave it at that unless anybody has any comments on that. I think this is something the board's been wanting for a while, especially the 3 to 5 year capital plan. And if we can get some more information, because you always have this thing come up where we don't have enough money, but what project do we not fund? Or do we fund all the projects at 40%? Maybe we only fund some at 40% and some at 30%. We have that flexibility, and we need to use that flexibility and leverage our position. Healthcare is needed throughout our region, and we need to support as much as we can, but realistically, not everything is affordable at the same time. Director Gettens?
Thanks. I just wanted to say I think this is really great. I really appreciate the direction that you're going forward. I'm glad everyone's at the table. I think that regional approach, I mean, like, you know, all of the interior region approach and knowing what everybody's doing, more transparency, the better. There's got to be some kind of shared, savings and that kind of thing too, if we're all having this conversation early. So I think good work. I'm excited to see this. So that's great.
Director Holmes?
Likewise, thank you for doing this. It's definitely needed. My question would be, what if, would the MOU look at how we should consider things that fall out of the 3 to 5 year strategic capital plan that aren't in that initial strategic importance, and then because something comes up or a new funding opportunity from the government comes up. I'm thinking specifically the whole thing with the UPCC, you know, how that came to us, which probably wouldn't have been in their 3 to 5 year capital plan, because it just fell on everybody's laps, right?
Right. No, I think there needs to be some language in there. I mean, the strongest I've seen is minimizing out of cycle funding requests, which is that's kind of one of them there. But I also think the other piece that will help that will be the meetings that we have, that the hospital district chairs have with Interior Health in Kelowna at face-to-face. Those meetings, I haven't been in the chair for 2 years. I've had one meeting, and it was a Silga Zoom meeting, and it was really a dog and pony show with Interior Health. It wasn't really a nuts and bolts discussion about what's going on. So having a meeting with all the chairs there, but having a meeting with individual chairs and getting those things out and minimizing those out-of-cycle requests is going to help. There's been some big ones. Some of the other chairs were talking about I think the hospital expansion project in the Caribou in Williams Lake or something like that has added $30 million to the ask. Like, it's huge dollars coming out of nowhere that nobody was prepared for, and then you're trying to find money and scramble to find money to do it, because you need that at the end of the day. But there's also the opportunity to say, you know what, we're not going to fund that at 40%, we're going to fund it at 20%. And I still go back to that UPCC. That was an opportunity for the board to really send a message, and we ended up funding that. And by all accounts, that's one of the things I'm going to be asking for when Interior Health comes back to the board, is to give us some documentation and information on that UPCC and how well it's performing, because I've heard lots of things that it's not performing that well. I've had first count examples of people going to the UPCC and not being able to see anybody, not get a doctor. There isn't a doctor working there for 2 or 3 days. So it'd be nice to have sort of a recircle back and see what is really working and what's not working with that UPCC. And even Interior Health, when they were here, Madeline was here, she acknowledged that, there's been some challenges there, but she didn't have enough information at that time. So I think that's good information as well, because when we get asked to fund things like UPCCs, well, how well are they working? What's really going on there? Director Gettens?
Yeah, thanks. You just sort of sparked a question in my mind around that hospital up near, in Williams Lake or wherever. And I remember when I was on the Economic Development Committee for the city a million years ago, and Summerland, oh God, what's the name of the mayor a few years ago? Thank you. Came to the meeting and promoted this idea, but it was almost like, and you probably will know more because you guys were at the table at the time, but it was like we had to get the money together first in order to move with the hospital expansion here, and we had time to raise up that money from taxpayers. So is there discussion about like how will IH take our feedback of what we need from our community perspective as well? I guess is there part of that conversation in developing these plans that you have a voice representing the region, that this is what we're looking for, like here's what we're hearing from citizens, here's what citizens are really looking for to get funded?
Well, I think there's two things to that. And the first part is that, when they bring forward a project like that, you have a needs assessment. You understand the board understands what the strategic importance is, that where does it fit in? And just an implementation and accountability process and having those discussions early on. And the board, the only leverage that the board has is that supporting it or not supporting it. So if you have that information, at least you can make an educated decision about whether you're going to support a project or whether you're not going to support a project. Right now, all we get is a spreadsheet with a number at the end, and maybe a little bit more information when you talk about the Penticton Regional Hospital expansion or the oncology, stuff like that. But even that was pretty thin. Like, I wasn't here for the expansion, but the oncology I was, and that was pretty thin documentation. It's a much needed great project for sure, but you would think, and what we're asking for is more of that. So when somebody says, well, we can't afford everything, what do we take off the list? Well, how do you make that decision? So, Director Kones?
Just on that subject, is there anywhere, as a new board director, that we can get some minutes or some idea of what was promised for that care center that we funded on Martin Street, so that we can know if they're keeping up with their promises when they came forward to ask you for money? Is there somewhere documentation, maybe I should ask through the chair, through Christy, if there's documentation of what was promised having to do with hours and what was promised to service the community?
We could have a look and see what actual material was produced. I believe that was all in camera conversation, so we'd have to have a look.
Yeah, I was part of those conversations, as a few members around the board here were, and there was very little information. We've got this thing, it's open, we need $1 million. And it's the best thing since sliced bread. So I will, at some point, Interior Health will be back here giving us a report on how that facility is operating. And I believe it's tied to pathways and that whole thing as well, because that was part of what was happening there. So there's another, some marginalized people with addiction issues and stuff accessing that UPCC as well. So they transferred some of those things there. I don't know if anybody here knew that was happening until it happened. So that's been one of the problems with IH. And I do believe in the most recent conversations I'm having with IH, they're starting to understand the frustration that people are having, boards are having, councils are having, mayors are having, trying to keep hospitals open, trying to get questions. And sometimes you're getting different bits of information that are contradictory. So, yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, I will keep working on this hard, and hopefully we'll see it here. We'll keep you updated as much as we can. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Moved second. All in favor? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Johansson. I think, yeah, we were right on time. Good job on that. Looking at our agenda here, proposed agenda, opportunity to remove anything off the consent. Anybody have anything they want to remove off the consent agenda? Not seeing any hands there. I do believe we wanted to add a brief in-camera at the end of this to keep something moving forward. So that will be added to the agenda, just so everybody's aware. And it will probably go after our board members' verbal updates, just so then we don't have to have staff going in and out.
Chair, at that point, will you indicate what sections you're going in?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
It's the same as what we were under before, so. Nothing coming off the consent, so is someone prepared to move the agenda as amended? Moved, seconded, thank you. All those in favor? Great. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us down to the consent agenda, corporate issues. Looking for a motion to adopt those. Moved. Seconder. Perfect, thank you. All those in favor? Thanks. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to development services, rural land use matters, CAO. B1.
This is an application for a temporary use permit in Area A, Mr. Chair. And it's regarding an application to allow year-round operation of a mobile vendor on a commercial tourism property. And there's also 3 recreational vehicles on the site that are occupied, 1 mobile home that's not, and there's outdoor storage. We're recommending against this, Mr. Chair, just because year-round operation of a mobile vendor doesn't seem to be a temporary use.
Okay, thank you for that. And could I get someone to potentially move the motion, moving it? Seconded, thank you. Being on the floor to deny, is there an applicant in the room that wants to address the board about that application? Is that you, sir?
Yeah, I own the Beach Barbecue and Smoke Shack.
Okay, if you could just come up to the front table there and press the little button in the middle of that console and the green light comes on, and please go ahead.
Well, I don't really know what to say.
Well, just tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do.
Well, we run, the Beach Barbecue Smoke Shack. We do smoked meat, obviously. We have 2 trucks. One is stable that sits at the site we're talking about, and then one is mobile. So, and we do, in the wintertime, our smoking of the meat and everything is done on that site. That truck doesn't particularly run all winter long, obviously, because it gets too cold, but we do other events. We do catering for weddings and lots of other things as well. So that's why that truck sits in one spot.
Okay. And the modular homes or
The modular home, that's been there since way before I got on that property. It is, we were actually going to take it down, but then all this come up and we've been having some issues with some things that come out on the news, which were false anyhow, but so I didn't take it down. I know we have to get a permit to take that out of there. It's a totally useless building as it is.
Okay. And the RV units, are they
Yeah, I have my motor home there, yeah, and then another one for an employee when we're there working, yeah. Because when we're smoking meat, it's 15-hour process with a natural crossfire smoker. We can't leave it.
Okay. I'll ask the board if they have any questions for the applicant. Director Federico, go ahead.
Thank you. What water source are you connected to?
With the town. There was a thing that come out about illegal water use, but the town come and turned that on for me in May of last year without telling us anything about the water until we put in this application. And now that has been changed. We changed that over. We are on the town. They actually turned it on this morning.
Okay. Director Graham, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, the chair. Does your, both facilities, are they interior health and food safe all up to inspections? Do you have-
Absolutely, yes.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Director Bush?
So how did it come about you had to apply for a temporary permit?
After I moved on to the property, I was told it was all good, that I could do it. And then we had bylaw stop by. And then I've been talking about the temporary use permit now for quite a few months, and now we finally got it in, so, yeah.
Could the temporary use permit be temporary instead of full-time?
I'm confused.
Well, we are asking for a temporary use permit, but you want to do it all year round, so there's confusion there.
Do you operate your facility all year round, or is it just a set number of months in the year?
Well, as long as it's warm enough to operate the truck, we do, yes.
So I don't have a problem with a temporary use permit.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Director Holmes?
Just following up, yeah, I'm a bit confused. I thought a temporary use permit is for a temporary period of time, it's not regardless of whether it's seasonal or not, no?
If we can just keep the questions right now for the applicant, and then we can have the discussion and get those ones that may require a staff answer afterwards. Okay.
So I guess my question for the applicant is, so your business is seasonal or year round? Simple as that.
Well, seasonal mostly with the trucks, year round when we do catering. So if somebody has an event where they want our smoked meat and our stuff at the event, I have to prep it at that site because that's where the big smokers are. It's not something we can just pick up and move around. It weighs a few 100 pounds.
Okay. Director Federico, and did I see a hand over here? Okay, go to you after. Go ahead.
So are you in the RV only when you're smoking meat, or do you live there permanently?
We're there quite a bit of the time, yes. We do have another place in Osoyoos that my daughter is mostly in, but I'm there because basically I'm working my business 24 hours a day.
Okay. Director Gettens, you had a question?
Yeah, that was the same question, just if you're living on the property full time in either the mobile home or the RV.
Yeah, the mobile home it's not livable. Like I said, we wanted to actually take it right off the property.
Okay, thank you.
Director Monteith?
I think we're all sort of asking the same question. So with the 3 recreational vehicles,
Yes.
how many are occupied year round?
One for sure. There's one that's there. My big motorhome is usually there all the time. And then the other one goes in and out. He's an employee that works with us, but he goes down to the state side and he's in and out. And then the other one isn't occupied whatsoever. That's mostly for storage in that one.
Okay, Director Coyne Senior, I see a hand from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if we deny you today, what happens to your business and your employees?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that?
If we deny your application today, then what happens to your business and your employees?
They will be out of work and I'll be out of business.
So you don't have another place to go?
Not right now, no. In fact, the one truck has been closed for 3 weeks now. And I won't be able to move. I'm out of money, so it's as simple as that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Director King.
Thank you. Through the chair, you had an issue with Fortis and electrical. Is that all been resolved?
That was when you're talking with the temporary power.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's all been upgraded, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I have one. You don't own the property. Are you leasing it or is
Yes,
that?
yes, I have a lease on it, yes.
Okay, so it's just that portion where the buildings, or for lack of a better word, those RVs and buildings are at the moment, is this concreted area?
The front where the truck, where the food truck is, that's all paved from the old restaurant that was there. And then the back is gravel where we have the RVs parked.
Okay. But it is just that small portion?
Correct.
There, okay. Thank you. Seeing no other questions, appreciate you answering our questions for us. If you can
I appreciate it.
go back and take your seat.
Do you want me to turn this button off here then?
If you would, please. Thank you. Discussion on this? I will start from my perspective. I personally don't have an issue with the food trucks, but with the number of RVs that were sitting on there, plus that modular home. And that modular home, because originally there was a temporary use permit for a food truck several years back. I remember approving one, and that went fine. And I believe at that time they were supposed to clean that site up. That modular was supposed to go, and the building that was there from the previous restaurant was supposed to go, and it did, but not the modular. So I'm a little bit concerned about approving it until those things are actually cleaned up. But Director Bush.
So can we do that? Approve it with the condition of cleaning up the mobile?
I suspect that would be an option. I think there was something that was in the staff reports, but maybe staff should come back up so we can get a clarity on that. Okay, Mr. Garish.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding with these applications is that the applicant has asked you to consider approving a very specific list of requests, which would be in this case the food trucks, the RVs, and the mobile home. And so I think I've mentioned APCs and potentially the board in the past that with these types of applications, you're either all in or all out, and you can't pick and choose because that's not what the applicant has asked you to consider. And so if there's a concern about certain elements of the application, but potentially the better course of action might be to defer, and we can discuss with the applicant if they're willing to amend their application or not, and bring it back at a future board meeting.
Okay, this proposal, Director Gettens.
Thank you. Just given that the property is leased, would the removal of the mobile home then, that would fall onto the property owner? The property owner would have to agree to that. I'm assuming that's the property owner that owns the mobile home.
Just quickly, if you could answer that, is it?
I would get rid of the mobile home. That was my intention anyhow, because it's an eyesore. It looks horrible sitting there.
Okay. And Director Knodel, I'd seen a hand, but it disappeared. Do you have a question or? Now you disappeared. Yeah.
There's no problem then with hooking to septic as is requested by staff?
Currently, how is it serviced? Can you?
Septic, it's taken out by Darline Septic or Swine Country.
Yeah.
There is a septic tank there underneath the mobile home, but again.
Yes, that requires a different permitting system to change that use, but any other discussion on this? From my perspective, I kind of lean towards deferring it and letting staff have the discussions on how to deal with that. So if someone's prepared to move that, Director Gettens, moving, seconder for it, thank you. Does that make it corporate when we're deferring, Ms. Mulden, just to confirm, or stays rural?
If we're deferring or postponing, Then it would be corporate.
That's what I wanted to confirm, was just that exactly. So it will become a corporate vote, the deferral. Ask the question on it. All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to B2, zoning bylaw amendment for mobile and accessory dwellings. I think that was this morning's hearing. Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, this is the mobile homes on parcels greater than 1 hectare, Mr. Chair, and it's in for third reading.
Direction on this one. Go ahead, Director Coyne.
I have a question for Mr. Hirsch. So there's a lot of conversation back in my neck of the woods is why Area H isn't part of this, but can you explain that the zoning already allows for that?
He's looking for clarity, okay?
So right now, people are saying that they can't have a secondary mobile home on a property in Area H, but the zoning
Already allows for it.
does allow for it, correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So that's all I wanted clarity on, because it's not listed in this bylaw.
Yeah. Okay, so this applies to everybody but H because it already exists there. So Director Knodel.
I'd like to move the recommendation, please.
Okay, so you're moving it. Is there a seconder? It's on the floor. Thank you. Question, I've got a couple of hands. I've got a couple of hands. First, Director Roberts, and then over this way.
Thank you. So my question is this for the participants? Because B and G aren't in this either.
I suspect it's a rural vote, but I will double check that with, is it a participant only vote or is it a rural vote was the question. Yeah, that's a rural vote. So. Director Gettens, and then who's on that side? Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Thanks, Chair. Can you, I just would like you to help clarify a little bit for Greater West Bench about this rule and just confirming that this would only apply to properties that are on community sewer and not separate septics within the 1 hectare, just thinking about the 1 hectare policy and where we are with that. Thank you.
Mr. Garish, or?
Sure, thank you. So one hectare really isn't too much of a consideration here. We probably could have done a better job of explaining that the changes really only apply to zones that already allow for accessory dwellings, right? And so if you're on a parcel sub 1 hectare, not connected to a community sewer system, then you're not really technically allowed an accessory dwelling to begin with. And so in the West Bench, of course, also there's the concerns around geotech, and the zoning in the West Bench doesn't allow for accessory dwellings, so this doesn't apply there either.
Thank you. I just like that. Nope, I just like that confirmed and it's recorded and we're good to go. Thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion on this one?
Sorry.
Go
Just
ahead.
really, yeah, so just for clarity, it doesn't impact the 1 hectare rule from the Okanagan Water Basin Board, but we're still in discussion with that.
Yes.
Yes. Seeing no more hands. Again, this one is a rural vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to B3, petition to enter a service area in electoral area E. CAO.
This is an application to extend the Naramata water system to 3870 Vineyard Lane, Mr. Chair, and it's in for 3 readings.
Okay. I will go to area E director on this one. Go ahead.
I'd like to move the administration's recommendation, please.
Okay, so you're moving it, seconded, thank you. Discussion on it? Seeing no hands, this is a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Over to finance, C1, CAO, Area D Community Works.
We had previously approved the Centennial Park washroom for 2024, 23-24, Mr. Chair. We want to cancel that and use the money that had previously been identified to stop the erosion on the spit in Okanagan Falls. So this then recommendation is to authorize an additional contribution of $100,000 to the spit from the Area D Community Works Fund.
Okay,
And
thank
it's
you
in
for
for
that.
4 readings.
Oh, I forgot, sorry, Director DeAndre. I was almost going to say Director Taylor over there, but welcome to the board meeting and thanks for filling in for him. And I should also extend that to Director King as well. Thanks for attending today on behalf of Director McCordoff. So I will go to Director DeAndre. Okay, so it's moved. Is there a seconder? Thank you. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, again, this one is corporate. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. C2, small equipment maintenance, CAO.
We currently have an agreement with the city of Penticton to carry out our fleet and small equipment maintenance, Mr. Chair. And with the city, they can no longer do tire rotation, and they are at capacity at their shop. So we went out for proposals on this service, and we're recommending that we award that contract for fleet and small equipment maintenance to Fountain Tire.
Okay, Director Monteith, are you moving it? Thank you. Seconder for it? Great. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Go ahead, Director Van Elfen. Question?
Just a comment, probably much more economical. No.
Was that a shot? It went out. It went out for bid, so they came back at the lowest at the moment. So we'll leave it at that. Any other questions? Seeing none, again, a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. This is for the award of that Okanagan Falls project. CAO.
Yeah, now that we got the money for this, Mr. Chair, we want to award the project for the Okanagan Falls spit to H&M Excavating Limited for up to $200,991.35 out of the Community Works program.
Okay, Director DeAndre. Moved. Seconder for it. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Again, seeing none and a corporate vote. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to Section D, Legislative Services, Fees and Charges, CAO.
This is to add a fee for those residents that petition into a fire service halfway through a year, Mr. Chair, because we haven't captured them in the tax roll, then this would be them paying their share for that service.
Okay. Someone prepared to make that motion? Moved. Seconder for it. Thank you. To me, that makes sense. And sometimes it actually turns out to be more than a year that they actually miss that tax roll. So this takes that into consideration. So everybody is paying for the service they get. So I see this as a good thing. Any further discussion? Another corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Down to D2, petition to enter a service in Area H, CAO.
Yeah, so this is to extend the service area for the Tulameen Fire Department to those 3 properties along Coalmont Road. And this will be for 3 readings, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Director Coyne, Senior, I'm no longer, oh, there he is. Go ahead.
I'd like to make an administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, you're moving it. It's seconded. It's on the floor. Any discussion on this? Fairly straightforward. This one is again a corporate vote. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. D4, Oliver Parks and Rec, Service Dissolution and Amalgamation, CAO.
Did we do D3, Mr.
Oh,
Chair?
did I miss one? Okay, I did. I turned my page over too fast. Another petition to enter a service in electoral area I. Sorry about that. I'll let CAO introduce it and then.
This is a request to extend the Cleveland Fire Department to 11 properties along Highway 3A, Mr. Chair, and this is back for adoption.
Okay, Director Monteith.
And I'd like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, moving it, seconded, thank you. Discussion on this? Seeing none, again, corporate, all those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now over to D4, Oliver Parks and Rec, CAO.
Yeah, we had a request from the Oliver Parks and Recreation Society to permit dissolution, Mr. Chair, and then to enter into an agreement with the town of Oliver to manage those 5 services that we currently have for them. And prior to doing that, the intent is to combine those 5 services into one, just for easier administration. So we're recommending that we commence that process to combine the 5 services, Mr. Chair, and we're looking for 3 readings and then to forward that to the Inspector of Municipalities.
Okay. Director Knodel or Johansson?
I'll make the administrative recommendation, please.
Okay, he's moving it. You'll second it. That brings it onto the floor. Thank you. Any discussion? Fairly straightforward, and we'll be seeing it again, I'm sure, when it comes back for adoption. Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. How come I'm smelling smoke? Is it just someone opened the door and it came in or something? I just, all of a sudden, I got a strong whiff of smoke. That could be. Maybe that's where it came from. That brings us moving on to CAO reports, which is probably going to be an update on some of the creation of the smoke. CAO.
So I sent this out earlier, Mr. Chair. We do have a series of alerts and orders on the Crater Creek fire, and we had a declaration of state of local emergency that was issued on August 15th, and we need to have that ratified, and then we need to extend that for 7 days to August 22nd, and then we need to send that into the Minister of State for emergency preparedness. So if we can get that on the floor, Mr. Chair, then I'll just give you an update as to where we are now.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Any discussion on it? Pretty standard stuff at the moment. Unfortunately, a little too regular. Call the question on it. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Did I see a hand or miss a hand? Director Roberts, you had a comment or?
I just wanted a question, and I'm assuming it's through the process. As the new alerts have gone out and are heading towards Headley, I'm wondering whether or not, and I'm assuming that in the EOC, because right now at this moment, we're directing everybody to the village, Victory Hall in Karamias, but if the fire activity is pushing west, I'm assuming that we're going to see things come out pretty soon in regards to those people that far down the valley heading the Princeton direction. Just wondering if there's any information on that. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sure that'll be talked about in his report probably. So I'll just finish off with that motion. We had it, most everybody I think was in favor, but I'll ask for opposed just to be sure. Okay, nobody's opposed. The motion carries. CAO, do you want to finish off on your report?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Just on that specific question, so with the orders, we did open a reception center in partnership with the village of Karamias, and they were gracious enough to open up their Victory Hall. and that's where it is right now. The prognosis on the fire is disappointing in that it is growing very rapidly. It's very volatile. It is moving to the north. We expect heavy winds this afternoon from the west to the east, which is going to blow it in the direction that we don't want it going in. So in discussions with Karameas, we've determined that we'll close up the reception center in Karameas. We've been in discussions with Penticton to open up the Penticton ESS reception center. And in fact, they were already open in that they're now supporting the West Kelowna fire as well. So there's just lots of movement going around with that. Now, depending on where the fire goes, we are expecting that around just outside Karameas up past Headley, that the fire is going to encroach on Highway 3, which would not make it beneficial for us to be sending people north. So that was the decision on Penticton. Other than that, the Crater Creek fire initially was 2 fires. It was up on not only the Crater Creek fire, but also Galanda Creek. And a couple of nights ago, those converged down into the valley, became one larger fire, went from just under 1,000 hectares to over 10,000 hectares overnight, hence the smoke. It is moving. It's still on the top of the ridge, but we're concerned about Karameas, and we're concerned that it may get down to Highway 3. It's moving in that direction. There were some properties, not a whole bunch, but there were some properties that were affected. We know that we had about 150 people, guests and staff at the Cascade Resort, and they had to shelter in place while the road, the Ashnola Road was closed. So just a whole bunch happening at the time. There is still the order on that area. The alert was just expanded just 10 minutes ago to, as Director Roberts mentioned, to take in the encroachment towards Headley and the road. So at this point, we're just supporting BC Wildfire in their efforts to try and get a better grip on the fire and the fire movement. And really, as we all know, it's going to depend on the wind and where that blows it. But we are expecting major movement this afternoon.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Bush.
Yeah, so I'm confused about the evacuation order in Area B because I don't know where there is any, and I keep getting these questions like who's evacuated and who isn't. Area B isn't next to the fire so far. I'm not saying that it won't come there and we should be in alert, but I don't think we have any evacuation orders where people live.
Can that be clarified?
Yeah, I'd have to get clarification on that, Mr. Chair. My understanding was there was a small portion of B. Certainly the Lower Similkameen Indian Band has declared a state of local emergency, and they have properties in that area. We know that the Upper Similkameen Indian Band is now looking at evacuations. So as to which part of B, I know that if we issued an order, we would have asked the chair to declare a state of local emergency. And it's much easier for us to just declare based on an electoral area than it is a specific perimeter. But there must have been a small part of B that was captured.
There is Snowy Mountain, but nobody lives up there.
Yeah, that
we'll
would
get
then
that
trigger it.
clarified.
Yeah.
As to which homes or
Yeah,
properties.
I should just say, Mr. Chair, it's not just the evacuations. When BC Wildfire identifies perimeters, both the inner and outer perimeter, they're often up there working, and they don't need people in either traveling in the area or driving over their hoses. There are structures in there and they set up structured protection around them. And in that case, we need those powers under the state and local emergency in order to do that.
Okay. Any other questions or? Don't think, Director Weeb, go ahead.
So if I could speak on behalf of the residents, if Kearney's Creek Fire taught us anything, it's that an ESS only in Penticton doesn't work. So the last time I spoke with our ESS volunteers, my understanding was there was a partnership in place. There was a willingness for the LSIB to host the ESS locally at their gymnasium. And if there's any way to provide feedback, I'd like to strongly recommend that as long as they're not under evacuation alerts or orders, which at this time they're not, that if we needed to relocate our ESS, that it be relocated to the LSIB, as they, at last I spoke with them, they were in favor of doing that, and we would be in favor of keeping the ESS local. Having Penticton is great, but as we saw, there were some issues, some challenges with having the ESS that far away, and ultimately we ended up opening one locally. So if we can keep it local, even part-time or how we figure that out, but I'd like to just speak that we do that as well. Thank you.
Okay. They'll take that into consideration and you can have those discussions offline if need be. Anything further on that? Anything else to report, Chair or CAO?
Nothing
before I go to the Chair's report. All right, thank you. That takes us down to the Chair's report. I did have a meeting yesterday in regards to the Fire Safety Act. I don't have a lot to report quite yet. We'll get a printout from it this coming week, so I will pass that on to the board. The only thing I can say about it at this point in time is that the province is changing direction once again on how they're wanting this to move forward. So it's looking like at the moment the regional districts won't be in a position where they have to monitor buildings or inspect buildings unless there's a complaint. But we're going to find out more on that in the future. So my understanding is though that there would be a need to have an inspector and an investigator when and if they're needed, but that's as far as it goes. And that would only be when there's a fire in a home or when there's a complaint about some buildings that aren't managed. But that creates a whole bunch of issues. So more on that later. Otherwise, I was supposed to get away for a camping trip and made it for a few days, but then the smoke up where I was camping got so bad I came home and I got into it worse down here. But I'd just like to thank the Vice Chair for taking over on the few days I was gone. So appreciate that, Spencer. Board representations. Municipal Finance Authority is done at UBCM, as is MIA, the Municipal Insurance. OBWB, anybody got anything there? Director Holmes? We usually leave that to Director McCordoff, but she's gone, so. We can get it from her the next time too, but maybe there's something that stood out.
Sorry. Director McCornoff wasn't at the meeting, so it was Director Holmes, myself, Director Frederico, and I think that was it. Yeah.
Was there anything that stood out that we should be aware of, or can it wait?
So I'm just looking at my notes here now, and one thing that did come up was, so there are a lot of boat launch, what they're asking, a lot of the boat launches don't move a muscle signs. Every boat launch ought to have it, and so some of the directors were wondering, why a boat launch in the area didn't have one. And so what they asked us to do is, if we could all check, those of us in the Okanagan could check our boat launches, our local public boat launches, and if we don't, if there's no "don't move a muscle" sign at that boat launch, you can just let me know and I can pass it on to the LVWB. So to make sure that one got there. And I don't know. That's all I kind of have.
For the time being,
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that. So, okay, Okanagan Film Commission, Director Gettens, nothing there? Okanagan Regional Library, Director Monteith,
Meeting in September.
meeting in September. Sterile Insect Release, Director Bush.
Yeah, nothing much new. I'll wait till a board report comes out.
Okay. Simia, anything there, Director Knodel?
Simia is silent.
Silent, okay. Starling Control, Director Bush?
Nothing there.
All right. ETCBC, Director Johansson, do you have anything?
No, nothing since the last update a month ago.
Okay, that brings us down to Director's Motions. Director Monteith.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to make a director's motion to have the Board of the Regional District Board write a letter of support to the Apex Fire Brigade for their application for the BC Community Gaming Grant, and write it today. Soon.
Okay, so you're going to need to make a motion to deal with that today. If you can make that motion, moving it. Is there a seconder for that? Great, it's on the floor. Call the question, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. And the motion you're after now is to write a letter of support for the Apex.
Fire Brigade to write a, letter of support for the Apex Fire Brigade for their application to the BC Community Gaming Grant.
Is it the Apex Fire Brigade or the Apex Fire Department, just for
Yeah.
clarity?
It's confusing. So the Fire Brigade is the fundraising part of the fire department. So
Okay.
every fire department has a society, so that's the society.
Okay, so it's a letter, they're the ones they're making the application, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Director Federico?
Is the application for the fire hall?
Yeah, for the construction that's going on at the moment. Go ahead, Director
Is
Cronin.
this something that every time someone wants to get the gaming grant, is going to have to come forward to the board? I hadn't really heard that before. Through the chair.
I'm not sure. It isn't often we do gaming grants, but it's an opportunity to get some funding. And with the cost escalations at Apex Fire Hall construction, they're looking for every little bit of help they can get. Director Coyne?
Yes, so their fire hall is no different than a lot of ours. There's a brigade, which is a nonprofit society that supports, they're just in support. But because they're going to be putting money into a publicly owned facility, they'll need a letter of support from that public entity to say that we support whatever application they're putting forward.
That's why it's coming here. Normally it wouldn't. Good explanation. Thank you. Anything further? Go ahead, Director Van Elfen.
Thank you through the chair. Years ago, during fire season, the province in their wisdom closed the forest to recreation. Now that was a few years back. This year is the worst fire season in the history of British Columbia. And I would like to see if I could get support around the board table that we send a letter to the appropriate ministry to close the forest until the climate changes out there, because this is absolutely ludicrous. There's people recreating, ATVing, dirt biking, and what have you in our forests, and this isn't the time. We should try to.
We can deal with that as a motion after
Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
one?
I thought that's what we were at. I
No, not quite.
apologize.
We'll deal with that one next. We've still got the motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on that motion for the letter of support? It's already on the floor. It's been moved, seconded. Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now you want to make that motion? Or look for a notice of motion, and then we got to go through a process.
To make a notice of motion that we send a letter to the appropriate ministries that we please ask them to close the forest in the RDOS region at least to help us protect our resources and our assets. Thank you.
Okay. So that's a notice, or do you want to do it immediately? If that's the case, then we need to ask to deal with it today, which is a motion.
Absolutely immediately. Thank you.
Okay, so you're making the motion to deal with it today. I've seen Director Graham seconding it. Discussion on that. That's just to deal with it today, not on the motion yet of. To deal with it today. Yes. This is just, do we deal with it today? And it requires 2/3 majority to get there, correct? All right, I'll call the question on dealing with it today. All those in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now the motion, you're making that motion to write that letter of support or letter to the province?
To write yes, please, to, through the chair, to write a letter to the appropriate ministry to please ask them to close the forest, all recreational uses in the RDOS until the weather changes.
Okay, so mover, is there a seconder for that? Seconded, it's on the floor. Discussion, go ahead, Director Coyne.
I don't know if they would close it to the RDOS area. They might to the Penticton Forest District and the Merritt Forest District. I think that would be probably the more appropriate wording because there's two different forest districts and that's how they close those areas down, if that's the way you want to go, or the Kamloops fire area or whatever.
Yeah, there's several different ways that they break this up, but.
I appreciate the friendly amendment.
Okay. Director Conants?
And worded in such a way through the chair that people know that Okanagan is, and Similkameen are still open for business and tourism, just not in the forests. So we just want to make sure that, yeah, just that tourists still are welcome, know that they're welcome.
Yeah. Anything further on this? Seeing a hand tentatively over there, Director Bush?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, none of the fires so far have been caused by tourists. There's lightning and the one person in Orville, I guess, but I don't know. I think it's kind of I know it makes sense, but it hurts a lot of people.
It does have an impact, that's for sure. Any further discussion? Is that a hand up, Director Holmes? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to know, I would like to hear from the province. I mean, you know, what they're thinking on it. And I guess the trouble, and I think this came up last time a motion came forward to us that we asked to discuss it on the spot. It would be, for both this motion and the previous one, it'd be nice in the future if the intention was to bring a motion forward and waive the requirement for, you know, to discuss it next time.
One, yeah.
To at least send us an email ahead of time to give us a heads up and you know, so we're not, because we're kind of making decisions without all the information. That's the way I feel.
Yeah. Don't disagree with that. It sometimes gives us then the opportunity to ask those questions beforehand or seek that info. So that's something to consider. Did I see any other hands on this? Missing one? Go ahead, Director Coyne. And Director, I see Roberts next. Go ahead.
So there's lots of factors that are at play here. The fire danger rating itself isn't that high, surprisingly. We have some pretty heavy dews right now, and then we'll be going into frost in our part of the country anyways here in a week or so. So that's where the province is looking, and that's why there wouldn't be a ban on in place right now. They've actually lifted in some parts of the province the campfire ban and whatnot. So usually, even though we don't typically have fires until, you know, later in the summer, they will lift a campfire ban during this time as well. So once we get into September, we have frost just about every morning up in the higher reaches of the district, and they'll lift campfire bans and everything else. So it is a concern of mine. I won't lie, because hunting season in a couple of weeks, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of people up there. But at the same time, I will be honest, I can't see the province doing this.
I tend to agree. I doubt the province is going to do it, but you can only make the request. Director Roberts. I see a hand up, but no. Okay. He's a no. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Those opposed? Director Bush, King, Pendergraft, and Coyne. Motion. Director Watt still carries. I'm sure of that, according to my count. Unfortunately, from my perspective. Yeah. Any other director's motions? Any other director's motions? Down to board representations, or board members' verbal updates, I should say. Director Coyne.
Yes, I have one announcement, or update. Former Mayor Frank Armitage of Princeton, some of you served with him on the board here. He unfortunately passed away on August 10th, and there will be a service for him at 12:30 on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday at the Riverside Community Center, if anybody is interested. So our hearts go out to his wife Darnella and his family, and it's a big blow to the community.
I'm sure it is. Just a question on that. Do we normally send out like flowers and that sort of stuff when there is situations such as this? Ms. Mullen? Okay, so that will happen, just so everybody's aware. That is unfortunate to hear. Director Wiebe, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment and thank, as a small village, we rely heavily on the RDOS and the EOC to bring leadership and do the info updates, take care of some of the details for us, and just an exceptional job by the EOC. So I wanted, I guess, Emergency Operations Center, we always get told not to use the shortened version, but, and also the Emergency Support Services, the volunteers, people came from everywhere the minute they were activated. By the time we got to 8, 10 o'clock that night, people were coming in from Oliver, Osoyoos. We had a crew show up from Penticton. Princeton was here immediately. And so just wanted to give a shout out to those that step up to make sure that our village is taken care of in a way that we couldn't do on our own. So big thank you to everybody out there.
Okay, appreciate that. It's good to hear. It was good cooperation. Director Bush?
I just read in the paper too, also, Jim Rayum passed away, and he was like our administrator for 18 years. I just thought I'd point that out.
Right, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Director King?
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to bring some positive news, the reason Mayor McCartoff isn't here today, she's down in San Diego with her daughter, and she just became another grandmother. The daughter just had a baby girl, so we are increasing the population. Not in our town.
Thanks for that. Any other board members' verbal updates? Seeing none. That brings us down to the in-camera portion. So we ask Adam to put us in camera, and I have to read out this section anyway, that we are closing the meeting. Oh gosh, where is it? It's on the grounds of labor relation in 1C something A. It's that section that was from this morning's, yeah.